Welcome back to another episode of Business Journey Unlocked. I'm joined today by Pete Stirn, Director of Operations at Charlesbrook Protection Services. Pete has been helping drive the operational backbone of the company, bringing law enforcement grade security, deep physical security expertise, and a steady focus on clear communication and execution. Pete, so excited to have you here today. I'm going to turn it over to you to explain yourself and what Charlesbrook is all about.
Well, thanks, Kevin. It's great to be here. Um, so a little bit about myself. I've worked in the public safety world for 30 years, give or take a couple months here and there. I work for a gentleman who owns the company. We happen to become good friends throughout this journey. He used to be my sergeant when we worked for a security um, bit in a medical facility, and we wound up coming this route. Before I took that role, I was a director of security at a casino in Southwest Michigan. Um, had a good public safety background, security background, law enforcement. And when my boss had acquired the uniform security of Charlesbrook, he asked me if I could help run that part for him, as he is very well knuckles deep into the events side of things, for his other company. If it's okay to say, it's Centurion Security Solutions. So he owns both companies. We work out of the same office, and we have just this great interchangeable network based on what our clients' needs are.
That's awesome. Given the connection you had with him, was there anything that he was primarily focused on for you to solve or help strengthen and scale the operation as director of ops?
He knew my background, and he had the utmost faith and, respect for me and every confidence for me to run the company.
Mhm.
Given that I was an executive director of security at a casino, which is just a multi-million dollar a day business, essentially, he didn't have any qualms about me running his agency, as it was overwhelming. I mean, running two companies on your own is no easy task, and he is one of the few individuals I know that could get it as far as he did on his own. So he brought me in, and he's like, "Here, here's your threshold, here's your boundaries, and if it goes outside of that, reach out to me." I let him know, and this is kind of my character from day one. I'm going to tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. That
Mhm.
was a conversation he heard as we were negotiating this process. And it's been going great ever since. The business is doing nothing but rising. We have a great reputation in Southwest Michigan, and hopefully in the next year or two, we can expand that outside of Michigan. But his loyalty is also to Michigan, as he is a you know, Michigan resident, born and raised. He's a Marine veteran, and he has local ties to the community. And he wants to maintain those, as do I. But I do think the services that we provide are well deserving in other areas, and I think that those areas are deserving of our expertise as well.
You're totally not wrong with that. And it just goes to show that you just need to think and expand on what exactly is beneficial for the company. Sure, yeah, you can stay in Michigan, totally no problem with that, but it boils down to, okay, what do I want this company to grow into? What do I want to go? What's the path Charles Broke wants to go into? And it's really interesting, as you mentioned, there's not a lot of people in other positions that can run two companies, right? Even just running one is hard, depending on what kind of company and organization you're in. But he saw your truth, your value, and he's like, all right, I'm just let Pete do his thing. He's going to be setting this company the way it's supposed to be. So, given your position as director of operation, for you, what are two or three non negotiables for running a high quality security company?
Well, you can't sell yourself short to appease somebody else's expectations. So sorry, my phone's still blowing up. Um, so you can't be a yes man just to kiss butt higher up, or whatever the case might be. You really need to be true to value and true to what your worth is. And for me to say, "Hey, boss, you're right every single time," is not benefiting anybody, myself, the company, and especially him. So, you know, if we could all just simply agree to agree, we wouldn't have a whole lot of diversity in the world. We wouldn't have a whole lot of competition. We'd all be working for one entity.
Mhm.
Um, so that is non-negotiable. If your character doesn't speak for itself and you don't have the highest value in your integrity, you're worth nothing. As far as anything else, I mean, everything else is fluid and flexible. We cater to the needs of our clients. I give you the best expert advice that I can. And unfortunately or fortunately, depending on what side of the fence you're on, we allow you to tailor that. Like, okay, you want two security guards for, say, for a specific event. I'm telling you, because of the environment, the community ambiance, and the threats that are in that area, and the volume of people that you have at this venue, you may need 6. And they're like, "Well, I can only afford 2." If it is achievable, I'll do it with that because we do wanna give you the best that you can afford. However, if it is not achievable, if it's putting my guys at risk and leaving you extremely vulnerable, then you're paying for a service that can't be achieved. I'm not gonna take your money.
That's the hardest thing that I've personally been seeing getting connected with people in the security realm. The companies that hire them, they wanna hire at such a low price, but that's not applicable. It's not worth the time doing that because the good old saying is, "They want champagne, but they can only afford beer," right? That's not truth, and it's a hard pill to swallow, but they need to understand the prices and the services you provide at the price are for good reason. All the years of experience that you have under your belt and the company as a whole has, I can't even imagine how many years you guys have. So going
There's
on that,
quite a few.
quite a few, yeah. Going on that, from an operational standpoint, what's some activities behind the scene that clients don't necessarily see, but it's a big part as to why they would trust Charlesbrook?
That would be behind the scenes investigations to any degree. So if I have a client, let's just take, for example, an apartment complex. I want to know the crime statistics from 5 years, quite possibly 10 years prior. I want to see how they've developed, where they're at now, and what kind of buffoonery we're gonna have to deal with. So I'm trying to keep this as professional in the social network. So many years in public safety, law enforcement, fire department, the military backgrounds that the rest of my crew has, and whatever. The language can sometimes get off color.
Mhm,
But in all honesty, it's the background investigations, the community investigations, even investigating what we're replacing. I want to know that, you know, if I'm replacing a company that has security guards sleeping at night, I am going to ensure that I'm hiring people who don't wanna sleep at all, if that makes any sense. At the end of the day, I wanna be so far and above our competition that there's no questions asked, and since the whole shutdown of reality back in 2020, 2021, and so forth, the community network of viable candidates has diminished greatly. And it's very difficult for any company, including security, to find the top notch. I refuse to sell our bottom dollar at bare minimum because I cannot pay quality people to provide your security needs. So there's a balance there and it's difficult. And sometimes we lose out on contracts just because we can't really cut ourselves off at the knees to appease a client. You're paying for security, you're going to get what you pay for. Now, there are people out there that'll buy Teslas just because they're the most expensive EV on the market. So it comes with its host of potential problems. You don't have to pay the most expensive price tag, but surely if you're paying the closeout prices, you're going to get closeout deals.
mhm. That does sound a little bit frustrating,
It's a
but
lot of bit frustrating.
it just goes to show that the people, some clients just don't see the realities of the scope. They are just so prime and focused on just having the security do its thing, but then once payday comes, they're like, "Oh my gosh, where's my wallet?"
Yeah.
Again, as I mentioned, it's a hard pill to swallow. But going off the negative, what's something that's really running smoothly in your company that you're really proud of that you personally have achieved coming into the company?
Well, in the security world, especially contract security, turnover is generally high. I believe marketably we have one of the lower turnover rates because we do take care of our employees. Now, I prefer to call them like the team as opposed to employees. There's a social disconnect when you have those specific labels, but I have a fantastic crew. I have a diverse crew. My staff is amazing. They have no problem coming to me. I will never forget where I came from. I also understand some of the things that they deal with that they want to complain about or be concerned about, and I address it head on the best that I can. Now, I can't allow you to bring a pillow and blanket to work because while you're working two jobs to make ends meet, um, I it would be nice if I had a spot that's like, "Hey, we want a sleeping security officer who can respond to an alarm." And I've had calls for those services. I've had clients say, "Hey, we have a fire watch. I know it's like 2 hours before you have nobody to fill this spot because it's normally vacant, but if you can get somebody in, they can doze off. We're not worried about that. But can they respond if an alarm goes off on that panel and notify local agencies for whatever reason?" And those are the times I reach out to my former law enforcement guys or my firefighter friends who are like, "Yeah, I've done that my whole life," because we all know that those services have a different dynamics and it works out well.
Mhm.
The camaraderie that we have, the fact that you can go to most security companies and the CEO, the COO, any of the directors or anybody above maybe a captain status doesn't even know who you are. And there's not a soul in my company that doesn't know who I am or who even the owner is. Even though we may not get to boots on the ground and see them daily or weekly, they do get to see us a couple times a year in the worst case scenario. And we get down in the trenches with them. I like putting on a duty belt and my boots. And sometimes I'll go on a site with a new individual who's heard my voice on the phone during the interview process because we have layers in that as well. But when they meet me and they see me, they have no idea what my position is until somebody else tells them. Because to me, it's not about the position; it's about getting everybody on the same team and being a part of that team to effectively change the outcome or to mitigate the circumstances that could be possible.
You're so right on so many levels with that. If you strip down all the titles, all the different categories that we classify, at the end of the day, we are all human. That's all it is. You do your job the same way as I do my job. I just have more time and service than you do, which is why I'm in the position that I'm at right now. It's all about the experience. It's all about the time and service. It's all it comes down to.
Yeah, what I like to say is that I'm no more important in this company than anybody else because without 70 something employees full time to fill these roles. I have no contracts to deliberate. I have no sites to fill. And essentially, I'm unemployed. And without me being able to negotiate contracts or to sell the company or to negotiate details with clients, they have nowhere to work for us. So then they're going to the competition and they're doing jobs that are undesirable. There's contracts that I won't take just for the safety reasons. You know, I had one particular entity, I'm not going to say where it was at, but really high crime rate and not even local law enforcement likes going there. And I wouldn't send a police officer over there to take a damage in the parking lot report without sending three or four highly trained police officers if that was my zone to take that report because it's unsafe. So you want me to provide security for that? It's going to be a minimum of 4 officers per shift. They're going to be armed, and you're going to be paying money that you can't afford
Mhm.
because I can't put a price tag on the lives, the livelihood, the safety, or anything associated with my officers. So they come first, and I don't care how much you're willing to pay. if it doesn't match the level of safety and preventative measures I can put into place to keep them safe, it's not worth it to us, period.
Mhm. Exactly, it's not worth it at all. You know, money only means so much to so many people, but if you're at harm's way, given a civilian standpoint, then it's not really worth it. And I do apologize about that, but, it just goes to show you that location is a huge deal on what really needs to be done, what organizations and security need to be put in place to prevent. I don't know what location it was at, but whatever it was, it sounded like it was pretty serious. But going on you briefly mentioned before that you're looking to scale outside of Michigan. What other opportunities are you putting on your plate, and what kind of operational upgrades are you pushing to prioritize to fulfill those necessary expectations or opportunities in the coming year?
That's a tough one to answer. I would like to get more contracts that are more upscale.
Mm,
Um, Nobody likes walking around like the mid-level mall, twirling a baton or a whistle, being called a mall cop, being degraded. It becomes the social network for people who are bored or looking for problems. And, you know, just as much, if not more than law enforcement, security officers just take verbal abuse. People don't
yeah,
seem to respect them. They don't want to adhere to the rules. And you bring in a security guard or a security officer or even a police officer on board. And socially now it's more acceptable to push and push and push, antagonize, and try to get some kind of outcome to put somebody in a negative light. Um, but what I would like to do is deal with those people who truthfully and honestly need a level of security, VIP security, executive protection. And we do a lot of that currently as well for individuals who have real threats based on their position or role in a company or in the social scale. So we have done specific details for some pretty high value celebrities, and at their request, we don't share that information. But whether it's you know, uh, sports athletes or, actors and actresses, just to chief operations officers, presidents of companies, and so forth, even some human resources directors who have been directly threatened because of an employee, given the nature of a discharge or termination. We enjoy doing that. It's a lot more challenging. It's more of a chess match than it is checkers, where nothing against any other form of security. But when you're sitting at a desk doing security for a hotel, there isn't a whole lot of branches on that tree. It's
mhm,
checkpoints, make sure the doors are locked. And when the crap hits the fan, call 911. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I have plenty of contracts that are the same way. But it does have a potential to get boring or mundane, and we want people to have the flexibility and the opportunities to advance, kind of like starting off as a police officer and becoming a sergeant or a lieutenant, detective, training officer. All that branches out and gives you another level of responsibility and challenges. And we want to offer the same thing. And the same time, we want you or whoever who says, "Hey, I've got Charlesbrook coming over to, offer a security detail for this weekend's events," or even Centurion on our event staff. And they're like, "Yeah, I've heard of them. And wow, how can you do that? How did you get the golden ticket?" And I'm gonna be happy to be at your event because I don't have to worry about looking over my shoulder because I know they will.
mhm, mhm. And it's hard to say, but people don't, depending on the contract, the job, the security is at, like, if, for example, if they're just at the hotel or, like at a school, people think that they don't really do a lot, but there's a lot that they do. There's a lot, again, that goes behind the scenes that they may not necessarily see, but because nothing goes on really shows you that the security is actually doing their job, and that's all that matters. But then it comes to a point where when something does hit the fan, they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're security. We're security. Security should be here." What security is over here doing another job, another, let's say, a change in orders or change in shift. Like they're there for a certain reason. Some people, some organizations think that the security that they hired, they're their boss, but they're not. They can't tell them where to go, who to interact with. That's your job as a director of operations. Some people don't really see those gray areas. Has that happened to you in your company?
It has at times. Um, I got to be careful how I present this because I mean, it sets up challenges. It's not a horribly terrible thing, but if too many people are trying to pull the reins and give direction, our officers are like, I don't know what to do. They're
Mhm.
instructed to take their direction from me. If there is a client on site that wants something added, subtracted, or done differently, they are supposed to go through me and I can filter it to the officers. So when you're dealing with, let's say, a homeowners association in a community, sometimes you will get different board members who want to dictate what's going on and it doesn't align with the contractual obligations. So,
Mhm.
for example, my officers aren't trained nor expected to clean out a trash chute, for example. I'm going to take something that's never been an issue with us because I don't want anyone feeling like I'm specifically dealing with an issue that we've had directly with them. Um, so my officers are trained in security, being observant, trying to recognize things that are out of place, and making the appropriate notifications when that happens. And sometimes it does deviate outside of security as a courtesy. Hey, there's snow accumulating at the steps. Do you want to do an accident report? Probably not. I've done a lot of them. I don't ever want to do another one. So throw some salt out there. It took 13 seconds of your day, not a big deal. It gives you something else to think about. But if we're going to try to fix a toilet that's overflowing, although that's noble, and I don't have an issue if you know darn well that you can handle that quickly and without causing any more problems. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but there's liability with that as well. And while they're doing that, or if a board member of a corporation, company, or housing development says, "Hey, I want your security to do this extra stuff," I understand where they're coming from. They don't necessarily see, like you said, what goes behind the scenes, or they're doing their patrols. And the reason that nothing's happening is because one, security is highly visible, but two, they're making all the checkpoints. So they're not leaving any vulnerabilities. Take them out of that environment, put them in an area that's not visible to the public because they're doing something as a courtesy to you. Something happens on the opposite side of the building. Now all of a sudden security wasn't doing their job. That's where it becomes a problem. So we try to keep it within the boundaries of, hey, this is what we negotiated, and you have two officers to cover your facility. Based on what we negotiated, that is achievable. Start adding on top of that, and then you lose your security.
Mm. Yeah, once you start adding that laundry list, you do lose the security aspect. Again, they're not there to do the mundane task. They're there to protect and serve the location, the building, facility that they're in. That's the main goal, and there's other side goals as well, little things that they have to check and go on from there, but they shouldn't be, unclogging the toilet or mopping the floor. That's not their job.
Sure.
So with everything you accomplish coming into the company and everything that you're looking to accomplish in the next 5, 10 years, what's one operational problem that you think could instantly get your company into the next stage, the next horizon of growth?
Honestly, it's the quality of officers. Getting people who want to do the job that can look past the stigma of what they see either in the movies, on TV, or in daily life. I mean, unfortunately, there are so many people trying to start security companies and they don't really understand what they're getting into. It's not a
Mm,
matter of I can sit back and collect dollar for dollar while I'm paying somebody. You have to engage with your team, you have to engage with the community, and you have to really know what you're doing. You can walk into any basic establishment and you can tell just by the physical appearance of anybody, whether it's security world or professional world or anything, the way they physically present themselves, whether or not you're getting quality or not. So, like for Charlesbrook, our uniform matters. We want everyone to look professional, pretty much like they stepped out of the police academy. In this case, the Michigan State Police is almost like a military driven, uniform type operation. Now, we don't want to be that harsh, but we want that level of professionalism. I don't want somebody showing up to work in a pair of navy blue pants and a black uniform shirt, brown boots, and a brown belt with multicolored fingernails. That does not set a professional image in anybody's standards. That may work at a coffee shop or a more laid back place, but when you're dealing with security and enforcing rules and policies and giving people a sense of security that, hey, I don't have to be on guard because they are, I'm going to enjoy myself, you want a certain perspective, and that doesn't work for me. The biggest part since COVID happened, I hate saying that word, is the fact that the caliber of people has diminished. People have this sense of entitlement that, like, I don't have to work that hard and you owe me something for something or something for nothing. So we target and we try to bring in former military with a good foundational background, previous law enforcement, even those trying to seek law enforcement. I don't necessarily want your stop at Charlesbrook Protection Services to be um, a resume builder, but in the same token, I will hire you if you have the caliber we're looking for. And potentially you're like, hey, you know what? I like right where I'm at. I don't want to go into law enforcement. I think I have a better benefit here. I think I can do more here. Law enforcement is getting tough. It's, staffing levels are low. You have to affect traffic stops. You have to respond to calls for service. You have to deal with some pretty horrible people. The liability, the public scrutiny, and the risks are just all over the place. At least in security, it's a little bit more controlled. I'm not saying that those things can't happen, but you're not pulling over cars. People are coming into your establishment. You should be judging them before they get to the door. You should be looking for those cues that say, hey, this is a threat, a potential threat, or hey, this is pretty good. I instruct everybody to go with your gut feeling. It is a developed trait, but your gut will never lie to you.
You're 100% right on that. Quality over quantity is true not only just in the security spec, but in anywhere. You should always follow your gut. Always follow your gut. And, you did make a great point regarding COVID and the entitlement. People want to work less and get paid the same or more. But the reality is, if you're doing a terrible job, why should I give you this pay? Why should I, go out of my way to say, okay, Pete's a great guy. I love this guy. You're not going to do that. And it just goes to show, I don't believe that it's necessarily in terms of COVID. Sure, COVID did ignite the work from home, ignite the not as much passion, but I think it revolves around just the work environment, the where it's going, especially in terms of my generation. My generation doesn't have as much, or even comparing your generation, the slots are completely skewed. They don't have as much drive, they don't have as much dedication, as much work ethic in comparison with your generation with working, and it just stems from the fact that nobody wants to work. Again, everybody wants to work from home. I have friends who haven't had a job in a year or two, and I personally got out of my way, stuck my hand out to get them a job, but then they just didn't want the job. They wanted to be comfortable, be at home with their parents, and being in that comfortable status, you're never going to grow. You're never going to grow. You're only going to be stagnant. And what good is that in your life? Your parents aren't going to be in your life forever. Sad as it says, that's just a way of life. And it just really goes to show that just everything that's going on in my generation in the work environment, it's just going in a negative perspective. And I feel with the technology, with just the work ethic, it's not going to get better anytime soon, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree. There's too many distractions out there. Even
Mhm.
myself, I'm guilty of this at home on the weekends. Um, it's too easy to look at your cell phone for entertainment or to see what else is going on as a distraction. And that's one of the difficulties in the workplace. I see it at food establishments, I see it at retail establishments, and I even see it in the security world where people are so focused on their phones that I could walk up and smack you in the back of the head and you wouldn't even know I was there. And that is a concern in the public service world, especially for security, public safety. That phone can completely take your alert level down to nothing, and you are just as vulnerable as anybody out there. And when you're wearing a security uniform or a public safety uniform, you are a higher vulnerable target, especially under those circumstances. So, throughout my life, I have seen people sleeping in a marked cruiser, uniformed police or security police or uniformed security, and you're the biggest target. If you're there for security, there's a reason. And if somebody wants to get one up on you, if you're sleeping, they know that they have access in. Or if they're looking to do something more than just, you know, malicious destruction or, banter, and they're looking to do harm, you're the first target.
Mhm.
And I can't reiterate that enough. And in today's world, regardless of what you do, you by now, anybody in general should assume there's a camera on them. It's either someone's cell phone, it's a hidden camera, it's somebody recording from a distance that you don't see, expand their phone to zoom in. So no matter what you're doing is going to reflect good or bad on you. And I suggest you take the high road and be professional and the best that you can be, regardless of who you think is or isn't looking.
Mhm. And it just goes to show, as you mentioned, perspective means a whole lot. They have a high status, they're there for a reason, they have a job to do, and if they're distracted on their phone, if they're sleeping on the job, what are they protecting? Nothing. Nobody. And people can slip by, stuff can get stolen, stuff can get damaged, and it's on their watch, and that reflects your organization as well. It's a very
Yeah,
big thing.
imagine calling a maintenance company to come into your home to fix something. And at the end of that, you get a bill and it says, well, here's your labor at $75 an hour for 4 hours. And you happen to notice that 3 of those 4 hours, they were on their phone, laughing, scrolling. Maybe, just maybe, they were texting work-related stuff, but was it related to the work they're doing in your home or on your time that you're being billed for? Would you wanna pay that? And what I can't reiterate with my staff enough is that even a 30-second blip on your phone, the client's perspective, what they see is their reality. So to you, as I was on my phone for 30 seconds, I just had to check this text message. To them, that's all you do the entire shift. And that is in any world, not just security. It's not just a problem for me. And a matter of fact, it's not as much of a problem for our company as it is elsewhere because we stress this all the way through the hiring process and our training process. And we make sure that our leadership team, our sergeants on the ground, our lieutenants on the ground, our captains, myself included, and the owner, to go out and reiterate with these guys and show by example that I don't need to be on my phone either. And sometimes most of my job is required. I've got to answer these calls, but you know what? My clients also know that we're well involved. So if I have to call them back in 3 minutes, so be it. And I think they understand that. And I reiterate that with them like, hey, I'm sorry I didn't call you back. I was butt deep into X, Y, and Z, and I was dealing with this. And they're like, hey, we totally get it. And I let them know, if they look confused, I'm going to do the same thing when I'm at your site. And I'm going to make sure that you get everything that you want and then some. It's only fair. And it works well.
Exactly, and you just gotta treat people with respect, and it's just you're there for a reason. Whoever's calling you, you can call them back in 3 minutes. It's not the end of the world. Whatever problem they have, they're still gonna have the problem 3 minutes later. So you're there to help them out, and then the main focus is just being on them, and that's excellent. That really shows the amount of work ethic that you have, and you trying to instill the same ethic into the people below you. That's all you can do. And you gotta keep drilling them again and again and again until it finally sticks. Sure, it may not stick the first time, it may not stick the second time, but if you keep on instilling the right habits, the right belief, eventually it'll stick. So before we wrap up here, I always ask this question, and it's kind of going back to what I just said. But for you personally, Pete, what's one habit or belief that you have that you carry day by day that really excelled your personal and professional career?
I think I to answer that question, it's how I perceive my buy-in. I invest into whatever I'm doing as if it was my own. I
Right.
run this company as if I owned it. I want to see my boss as successful as he can be. And the only way that's going to happen is to have people with the same motivational characteristics underneath him. I want him to be able to wake up and say, you know what? Everything's looking good. I haven't gotten a phone call. I don't have to worry about the company. That is, in all fairness, what he should be doing as a business owner. He still keeps his eye on the pulse of everything. He communicates with me daily. But I've noticed as the years go by, he's a lot more relaxed in our conversations because he knows he doesn't have anything to worry about. And anybody who's just going to give you the keys and turn a blind eye is crazy. And that's where other companies fail. We have a great partnership. He, runs a very flexible but very professional ship, and he leads by example. He in the summertime when the events are heavy, you can't tell him from any of the other leadership team out there. He dresses the way the rest of the crew does, and he gets his knees and elbows and boots dirty just like everybody else. And I'm the same way. My responsibility with the company is different as far as job description. Again, like I said earlier, I'm no more important as anybody else. Just the decisions that I have to make and some of the requirements that I have to deal with or meetings I have to go to is different. But at the end of the day, you take a spark plug out of an engine, it ain't going to run right. You take that engine out of the car, it ain't going anywhere. It doesn't matter what the value is to that piece or part of the operation. It has everything to do with you miss a part, you lose it all.
You're so right on so many levels of that. It just goes to show that you, again, as I mentioned before, you're no different than anybody. You lead by example, and that's how everybody should be. Every director of operations should always lead by example. Every owner, CEO, always lead by example. And because action speaks much louder than words. And the actions that you perform in the company not only show to the people that you have on the team, but also the founder, like, okay, I don't have to deal with this today. Pete has it under control. And that's beautiful. That's all that matters. For anyone who's listening or watching this, what's the best place for them to reach out to you or Charles Brook?
We have a website, www.charlesbrookprotection.com. If you're in Southwest Michigan, you could pretty much ask anybody out on the street. Um, you know, we post our hirings on Indeed. I like to keep certain resumes. If it doesn't work, some people are like, I can't work third shift or I can't work this particular shift they have open. Man, I really want to be a part of your company. Um, we're not hard to find. Look for our uniform. My officers, my leadership team will be more than happy to speak with you. And, conversely, if they're on the way to an event, like if you see one of our vehicles out and about and you're talking to my sergeant, he's like, listen, I've got to get going. It's because somebody's requested his assistance or backup, and we don't leave anybody hanging, no man left behind kind of concept. So they're not dismissing you. They're just making sure that right now their role, this takes precedence. So it's all about priority. But you know, we're looking for the best of the best. And if you want to be part, like, this isn't a job, it's a career. I
Mhm.
will get you in at the ground floor. I mean, you're obviously going to have to take what we have open, but we will develop and build you, fill in the voids in where you're lacking, and we'll use your talents to the benefit of all of us involved. We offer firearms classes. We have armed, unarmed security, VP, executive protection, and you prove your worth and you gain the ranks. We prefer to promote from within, and we will very closely monitor your performance, and you don't even know about it. I don't like just showing up and telling you you're not doing a good job. Sometimes that's the way it feels, but at the end of the day, we're a team to develop each other. And if I'm telling you, hey, you know what, you have to work on this area, it's not because I dislike you and it's not because I want to ride you until you walk out the door. It's because I want you to be able to correct that behavior or that deficiency to better yourself within the company and better yourself as a human being. Those conversations that I have with anybody who's lacking or having difficulties are conversations that have been had with me. I didn't just wake up one day and boom, here I am, a director of operations. These are skills developed and learned throughout time. And I had some great mentors in the past who have led me to where I'm at today. And I'm a fool if I don't share that with somebody else and allow that legacy from wherever it started to live on indefinitely.
At the end of the day, knowledge is power.
It is. And if
And
you keep it to yourself, it's nothing.
oh yeah, oh yeah. And there are some people, especially going to my generation, for example, who see that criticism as personal and they take it to heart and then they start resenting the person. But it's not personal. It's just helping you correct maybe even simple issues so it doesn't turn into habits. And once people unlock that certain type of mindset that this person is actually trying to help me grow not only in myself, but in the career, then that trends into everything in life, not just in work.
Absolutely. I'll finish with this. I had an individual who worked for me outside of this company many years ago, and it was difficult to get those deficiencies explained and corrected. And I had left that role and moved on. It was probably about 7 months later, I got a personal phone call from this particular individual asking for advice. And I gave them the exact same advice I did when they worked for me directly and explained to them that, hey, this is why I'm trying to help you. I don't know why, I'm repeating it and why it didn't sink in then. And that person's response to me was, why does it sound so different coming from you when you're not my boss? And I think we have this predetermined notion that the boss, if you hear from them, because this is how it was when I was younger, if you heard from the big dog, you were in trouble. And I still like that, but that's my generation. I understand that this new generation doesn't feel the same. And that was one of the hardest parts of adaptability for me was realizing that the dynamics have shifted. So we don't operate the same as we did 20 years ago. So, that person had a revelation that, wow, I have a different set of lenses on. I'm calling you without any fear of any kind of repercussions. We are guarded. We are raised and trained to be negative just by influence. You see it on the street. Oh, I got to work today. Or you saw your parents come home. It was a tough day at work. And, you see it in movies, media, whatever. It's all negative. So we are exposed to that. And that's what we regurgitate. So when you take that element out, when there's no risk, the words change, the meaning changes, and yet the message is exactly the same.
At the end of the day, you're just there to help them out. Once they can
Absolutely.
truly see that, then they don't look at you in that negative persona. They look at you as a mentor, as a helper. Again,
It,
knowledge is power.
it's hard to do that, but that's what needs to be done. You got to trust the people you're working with. If you don't, maybe that's not the environment for you. And that's
Mhm.
not a bad thing. You know, not
No.
everybody's meant to be one specific thing. If that was the case, we'd be a boring society.
So run at so many levels. And it just goes to show that again, just having that open and transparent conversation with people helps out in so many ways. So many ways. Pete, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me this evening. I hope I talk to you and connect with you another time.
Absolutely. Kevin, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and
Yeah,
to
of
invite
course.
me into your world. And I'm always here. I'm just a phone call or an email away. If you need anything, holler.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kevin. Have a great one.